Well, right now they seem to be an ally, and I think it'll continue to be an ally. And we don't want to have Russia there. We don't want to have China there. And by the way, we don't want Russia or China going to Greenland, which if we don't take Greenland, you're going to have Russia or China as your next door neighbor. That's not going to happen.
Nordic diplomats are publicly rejecting the U.S. president's claims of Russian and Chinese warships prowling near Greenland in what officials say is a stark denial of Washington's national security narrative. This crisis is igniting diplomatic fury, threatening NATO unity, and raising alarms in Nuuk, Copenhagen, and capitals across Europe. Newly reported diplomatic pushback is now reverberating through the world's capitals as Nordic officials flatly reject U.S. claims that Russian and Chinese vessels are operating near Greenland's waters. According to senior Nordic diplomats with access to NATO intelligence briefings, there is no evidence of Russian or Chinese ships or submarines near Greenland in recent years. Officials told the Financial Times that trawl and tracking data show absolutely no foreign naval forces within Greenland's surrounding seas. It is simply not true that the Chinese and Russians are there, one diplomat declared, reinforcing that the supposed threat is non-existent. Another Nordic official said claims that Greenland's waters are crawling with warships are unfounded and erroneous. Yet, President Trump has repeatedly asserted that Russian and Chinese vessels are near Greenland and used those assertions to justify U.S. strategic ambitions around the Arctic territory. Trump has stated the U.S. must own Greenland to prevent supposed foreign occupation, despite refusing to present concrete evidence.
And the policy question. How much money are you thinking of giving people in Greenland to get them on board with a possible U.S. takeover?
I'm not talking about money for Greenland yet. I might talk about that. But right now, we are going to do something on Greenland, whether they like it or not, because if we don't do it, Russia or China will take over Greenland, and we're not going to have Russia or China as a neighbor. Okay? I would like to make a deal, the easy way, but if we don't do it the easy way, we're going to do it the hard way. And by the way, I'm a fan of Denmark too, I have to tell you, and they've been very nice to me. I'm a big fan, but the fact that they had a boat land there 500 years ago doesn't mean that they own the land. I'm sure we had lots of boats go there also. But we need that because if you take a look outside of Greenland right now, there are Russian destroyers, there are Chinese destroyers and bigger, there are Russian submarines all over the place. We're not going to have Russia or China occupy Greenland, and that's what they're going to do if we don't. So we're going to be doing something with Greenland, either the nice way or the more difficult way. Please, go ahead, ma'am.
Mr. President, why is it so important to you to own it when you have a military presence there, which you could expand to affect the security?
Because when we own it, we defend it. You don't defend leases the same way. You have to own it. And, with a nation, look at what happened with Obama, with that horrible deal they made with Iran. It was a short-term deal. It was like a 9-year deal. Countries can't make 9-year deals or even 100-year deals. Countries have to have ownership. And you defend ownership, you don't defend leases. And we'll have to defend Greenland. If we don't do it, China or Russia will. It's not going to happen. We are not going to have, and I like China, I like Russia, I love the people of China, I love the people of Russia. I get along very well with President Putin, but I'm very disappointed in him. I get along very well with President Xi. I'm going to go over to China in April, but I don't want them as a neighbor in Greenland. Not going to happen. And by the way, and NATO's got to understand that. I'm all for NATO. I saved NATO. If it weren't for me, you wouldn't have a NATO right now. But we're not going to allow Russia or China to occupy Greenland, and that's what's going to happen if we don't.
Denmark has categorically disputed the U.S. claims, calling the imagery of foreign warships around Nuuk Fjord not correct, according to its foreign minister.
First of all, I believe that we should take the American president seriously when he says that he wants Greenland. But I also want to make it clear that if the USA chooses to attack another NATO country militarily, then everything stops, including our NATO membership, and thus the security that has been established since the end of World War II. I'm doing everything I can to prevent that. I believe in democracy, and I believe in the international rules of the game. Of course, I also believe that you don't change borders by force in any way whatsoever. That is not only the position of Denmark and the Danish realm, fortunately, it is also Europe's position, and that's why I also hope people notice the once again strong European support we are receiving. I agree that it is important to have security, peace, and safety in the Arctic region. That's one of the reasons why we are part of NATO. Greenland is also a member of NATO. It is a shared responsibility for the Arctic states, including the Kingdom, to ensure that there is security, peace, and freedom in the Arctic region. But Denmark has always been a good ally to the United States. We want to continue to be that. But I also have to take issue with some of the things being said by the American side. And of course, we will not accept a situation where we and Greenland are threatened in this way.
Speaking at Sweden's top security forum, U.S. Air Force General and NATO's Supreme Allied Commander for Europe, General Alexis G. Grinkewich, describes the Arctic and Northern Europe as a new front line in strategic competition from Russia and China. While sidestepping President Trump's Greenland push, Grinkewich highlights healthy dialogues in Brussels as allies tackle these challenges.
I won't comment on the political dimensions of recent rhetoric. It's not my place to do that as a military officer. But I will just observe the readout from the North Atlantic Council, where all of our permanent representatives from the 32 nations get together to discuss thorny issues. Those dialogues continue in Brussels. They've been healthy dialogues from what I've heard. And I think that's the most important thing. Members of the alliance who've worked together for so many years are talking together and working through these thorny issues. I don't think there's an immediate threat to NATO territory right now. As new shipping routes emerge and new resources are discovered, the Arctic only grows in strategic importance. And all of this comes in the midst of an increasing hybrid threat: airspace violations, GPS and GNSS interference, and the shadow fleet in the Baltic Sea threatening underwater infrastructure. In short, the Arctic and Northern Europe, by extension, has become a front line for strategic competition. And as the ice recedes and there's more and more access up there, we certainly see Russia and China working together. We have had Chinese vessels patrolling with Russia, not only on the north coast of Russia, but also north of Alaska and near Canada. And like I mentioned in my remarks, it's not for peaceful purposes. They're not studying the seals and the polar bears. They're out there doing bathymetric surveys and trying to figure out how they can counter NATO capabilities on and under the sea. So that's something that could grow very quickly, and we need to be mindful of it and ready for it. In short, military cooperation in this region has never been stronger. Moving forward, we intend to expand our intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance capabilities, to improve our infrastructure and logistics for military mobility, and to strengthen our presence with Arctic-capable forces. Many of those forces here in Sweden. With 7 of 8 Arctic nations inside the alliance, and the other one being Russia, we will and we can get this right.
Marine tracking databases, including marine traffic and LSEG records, reportedly show no Chinese or Russian ships near Greenland at all. Greenland's own assembly has rushed forward a meeting to discuss how to respond to what it calls external threats to control the island. Critics warn the U.S. rhetoric risks destabilizing NATO alliances and undermining European trust in American leadership. European leaders in Berlin and Stockholm are now pushing back, describing the U.S. approach as reckless and provocative.
It is perfectly clear that the fate of Greenland will be decided by the Greenlanders and the Kingdom of Denmark, to whose territory Greenland belongs. The principles of sovereignty, territorial integrity, and the inviolability of borders enshrined in the UN Charter must be upheld. All issues relating to security in the Arctic region must, of course, be discussed within the NATO framework, and that is what we are doing. We are also always prepared to discuss these issues openly within the alliance. I am very pleased that my colleague Rubio has now also announced that he will be discussing such issues with the government of the Kingdom of Denmark. This is certainly a sensible move and one that deserves our support.
The messages that we hear regarding Greenland are extremely concerning, and we have had discussions also among the Europeans. If this is a real threat, and if it is, then what would be our response? So, as Denmark has been a good ally for United States, and all these statements are not really helping the stability of the world, I would say. The international law is very clear, and we have to stick to it. It is clear that it is the only thing that protects smaller countries, and that's why it is in the interest of all of us, and we discussed this today as well, that we uphold the international law on all levels.
As tensions escalate, residents of Greenland, an autonomous part of the Danish kingdom, worry their future is being bargained over without their consent. Across the Arctic, this storm of denial, accusation, and geopolitical brinkmanship is intensifying into what diplomats are calling one of the gravest controversies of the year.